Hello, guys. I'm gonna do my belated review of Red Orchestra 2. Red Orchestra 1, the first Red Orchestra, was originally a Unreal mod for Unreal 2K4, made by Tripwire Interactive, who eventually released it as a standalone game on Steam. Um, if you haven't played it, you should probably go ahead and do that because it's a really good game. I used to play it all the time, and it's, of course, well known for its realism and its unforgiving difficulty. And Red Orchestra 2 had an extremely buggy launch, apparently. Apparently, it just, did not work for a lot of people. Extreme unplayable lag for most people. It was just unpleasant to play for a lot of people. And so, of course, I skipped it. But there was a free weekend, and I decided to download it to see what it was like, and found it surprisingly stable. And so I downloaded it, or I bought it, and decided to review it. Um, Apparently, they released a new patch during the free weekend that fixed most of the bugs, which is definitely great because I have definitely really enjoyed this game, and I'm just gonna run through what my thoughts of it and what I've experienced. So when I bought it, I decided to run through the single player just to see what it was like, and it was pretty much broken. Like, I was getting really crappy frame rate and this almost server lag like movement where the character would lurch forward in increments, and it was just really ugly to play, and the AI was really, really bad. Friendly people would run out into machine gun fire, which was really annoying because if you died in a single player, you'd respawn as an AI soldier, kind of, similar to Battlefield, except you would respawn as that soldier. So, like, if that soldier was being a dumbass and running out into an MG42 or, the DP Russian machine gun, because you start out as a Nazis, by the way. You have to play the Axis campaign first to unlock the Russian campaign. But yeah, you'd be fucked. And so it really wasn't that fun to play. Um, One thing I will also say about it is that the briefing videos are really cool to watch. The guy who does the voice of the German commandant plays a very convincing Nazi. He kind of touches on some of the political motivations behind Germany's ill-fated invasion of Russia, and it's I think it's nice if you're a history buff because it gives you this idea that there's a little bit more to Nazi Germany than just these kind of faceless zombies or these kind of inglorious bastards, caped villains, which was hilarious, by the way. But it definitely presents them in a somewhat historically accurate way. um, and I think if you are a history buff, I will say this multiple times, if you are a history buff, you will love certain aspects of this game. um, the good news also is that the bugs I experience in single player are pretty much exclusive to single player. Multiplayer seemed to run pretty much flawlessly for me. I was getting around 60 frames per second, 50 frames per second for most of the time. I didn't really experience much lag at all. And I didn't really experience any bugs either. I'm running this on an Asus laptop, which has, I think, 8 gigs of RAM, 2.7 gigahertz, and using an NVIDIA GTX 460M graphics card and Intel i7 processor. So, I mean, chances are if you're an avid PC gamer, you have something a lot better than what I have, especially if you have a desktop. Laptops are obviously kind of underpowered. And I think even if you don't have something as good as what I have, you'd probably be able to run Red Orchestra 2 without much issue, because I really didn't have any issues running it. It ran pretty well. Um, the biggest the biggest point that makes this game what it is the cover system. When you press control, your character will kneel behind the nearest cover, and your rifle, I mean, your gun will actually accommodate that. If you have a pistol, you'll hold it up. If you have a rifle, you'll hold it down to your side, and, if you reload, you'll have your rifle by your side while you're reloading, which is really cool to watch. The game really makes you feel like you're in the boots of an actual soldier and not sliding along ice like in Left 4 Dead or floating along the ground like in every other first person shooter. The movement really feels human, and that is an unbelievable feat that really only Operation Flashpoint attempted, and I think this game actually does a better job of capturing that. Um, I think the game's my favorite part of the game is definitely close quarters combat. This game handles close quarters combat amazingly, and it really captures the intensity and the just violent rage that the people in Stalingrad felt as they went at each other in these broken down buildings. When you fire guns indoors, you hear this echo as it bounces off like the rubble and the walls. My favorite gun to fire indoors is definitely the Nagant revolver. It just makes this amazing sound that I just love hearing. Like I'll just fire it randomly, even though it gives away my position. It's a great sound to hear. Uh, you can take your bayonet and jab someone. You can hit someone with the butt of your pistol. It gets brutal when it gets close quarters, and it really feels like it really feels like actual close quarters combat, and not just a bunch of like robots who get too close to each other and shoot each other like in most games. Uh, the guns in general just sound and feel amazing to use. Each gun has really unique sound that you learn to distinguish each gunfire, so you can tell if whoever's shooting at you is a German or a Russian, and it gives away a lot about their position as well. And just about any feature that you can imagine on a gun is in there in the game. If you have a rifle, you can adjust the sight to accommodate bullet drop at certain ranges. If you have a sniper rifle, you can not only does the scope actually work like an actual scope where you see through the scope like a sight and it doesn't encompass the entire screen like in most games, but you can actually use the iron sights, which are mounted under the scope, which is why the scope is usually mounted really high. You can also adjust the rangefinder on the scope as well. And of course, reloading with a sniper rifle is different than it would be because you have to put the bullets through the scope mount. You can't use a clip. My favorite gun to shoot is probably the MP40. It has a steady rate of fire, doesn't burn through clips too quickly. It's pretty accurate for a submachine gun. Sounds great, looks great. That said, I usually play as the Russians because I like the Mosin Nagant a lot better. And another thing that's amazing about this game is the soundtrack. I have not heard a better soundtrack since the original Medal of Honor games. It's really that good. I just look on YouTube for the soundtrack. You can listen to it now if you want. Not only is it just amazingly emotional and well put together and well composed, but it changes dynamically with the battle. So when you get together with your squad and you are advancing on an enemy position, the music will get more intense. It will play a more intense soundtrack. Not only that, but each side has a different soundtrack. So the Russians have like this very kind of Red Army choir sounding soundtrack, which is definitely the best of the game. The Germans have a lot more horns in their soundtrack. It's probably not as much like real Nazi war music. Real Nazi war music is really bouncy and dorky, and a lot of xylophones, and it's kind of circus sounding. Day of Defeat does a very good job of, emulating that, but I guess the composer felt here, it wouldn't really fit well for a battle, so they composed a different soundtrack, and did a very good job, in my opinion. Graphically, the game is very pretty. It is one of the best Unreal Engine games I've ever seen. It doesn't overdo it like so many Unreal 3 engine games do. You don't see this extreme saturation of, detail. You don't see this, like, gross black and white filter. Actually, you can turn it on and off if you want. There is a graphics setting in the called War Movie, which will make it look like, most modern brown and bloom shooters, but obviously I like playing with that off, and the game looks really good with it off. Things look extremely detailed. I play on medium settings because, like I said, I don't have that great of a computer, but even on medium settings, the game looks great. The weapons especially look amazing. And I mean, the one biggest flaw in my opinion is the the pain in the ass it is to set up a. You can't really host a game. There's no host game option where you can select your favorite mode and set up a game. You can launch a custom LAN game by using a dedicated server. I found some guides on how to do that. It seems like it's doable, but it's a bit of a pain in the ass. Haven't done it yet, obviously. Wish they made it easier to do that. And yeah, obviously sometimes the servers can get really crowded. You get high ping, but playing an hour ago, the servers were fine, and I was playing no server lag or anything like that. Overall, if I was gonna, I would definitely recommend this if you're questioning on whether to buy it yet. If you haven't played the free weekend, which I don't see why you wouldn't have if you have a PC, but if you didn't, just look at some gameplay videos. Like I said, if you have a computer that's even slightly better than mine, you'll run the game fine. If you have one that's even slightly worse than mine, you'll probably run the game fine. I can't really give a number score for a multiplayer game, especially because the experience really changes from person to person. I love the cover system. I cannot get enough of the cover system. It's definitely my favorite cover system I've ever seen in a game. Some people might hate it, because control literally is the one thing you press to take cover. They might think it's clunky. It can get clunky at times. They might think it's kind of useless, but again, I love it. I think it adds a lot of immersion. It adds a lot of options, a lot more tactical, a lot of tactics, and also obviously depends on your internet connection, your computer, people you're playing with. So yeah, I can't really give a number score to this game, but overall, I would definitely recommend it. Check out the soundtrack. It's so refreshing to hear good music in a game again. Especially after what they did to the Hitman soundtrack. Hearing this batshit stuff that they're pulling with Modern Warfare and all the games that are copying it. To hear people actually putting together actual compositions for a soundtrack is really, really nice. And again, I'm a musician, I'm a music nerd, so forgive me if I talk too much about that, but I really, really came away loving this game, and I continue to do so. My Steam ID is RustInPeace91. Hit me up if you want to play around, because I'm going to be playing it a lot.